local history, local culture, local events, your community. This is the Joe Kelly Show.
Hi there, everybody. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us. Joe Griffo is our guest. He's the state senator. He's been a state senator since 2007. He represents the 47th senatorial district. But that's going to be changing. We'll talk to him about that and a lot of other things. But first, we're going to say welcome. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, Joe.
Thanks for coming in.
Our pleasure.
47th district is not going to be your district anymore, is it?
47th will be in Manhattan right now, unless we kind of move down to Manhattan. Yeah. That's the new 47th. This will now become the 53rd Senate District. It will include all of Oneida County, Madison County, half of Shenango County, and a sliver of Herkimer County.
The 47th district that you've represented was a huge geographic area. It started at Route 20 in the south and went all the way up to the Canadian border. Is this a better district geographically to represent or no?
Well, it's going to, from a logistical standpoint, I think right now it's about 3 hours from one end to the other. The good point is we were able to now put all of Oneida County together. We had everything but Augusta and Kirkland in this most recent last redistricting, and we fought hard to try to make that whole. But so yeah, now it's about a 90-minute drive from one end to the other, whereas it was 3 hours before. So it'll be a little easier to get around. And I think that's important because you're trying to interact with residents, constituents, businesses, to get to know people and places. So we'll do our best. And yeah, it's going to be a little different, but I'm looking forward to the opportunity to serve in this new district.
You have the title now of Assistant Minority Leader. Is that up for grabs when the new legislature comes in? Are you going to seek something in leadership?
No, everything starts fresh again. So yeah, everything is up. But I will not be looking to do anything different right now. I mean, I was asked and offered the opportunity to seek the leader's role. I was former deputy. But I'm at a point now where, we're focused on doing the job. And if this, we may keep the title, depending upon what is going on in Albany. But my focus has been, as you know, in more recent times, we gave up, relinquished a title, as well as sought not to seek a title. But we are, I think with the seniority we have and the relationships we've developed, we're in pretty good shape in order to continue to advocate for this community, our region, and to get things done.
What is your seniority?
Well, from 2007, so I'm not sure what the rank number is. In our conference, it's at the top in the GOP conference. Overall, in the entire Senate, it's pretty high right now, too. They do that by license plates. I think I'm number 11 or 10 with a new session that'll be coming on right now. Mm-hmm. So that kind of tells you.
Had the Republicans taken control of the Senate, you would have been in a pretty good spot to advocate for this area, yes?
Absolutely. Not only this time, but even in the past, we would have been in a very good position. I might have considered taking different approaches and different decisions would have been made relative to leadership if we were in the majority. But as I indicated, I think despite where we are, because of the relationships we forged and the people we've gotten to know, I think we've generated enough respect so that we can still continue to do what we need to do to represent our communities.
Yeah, the committees that you sit on, they'll also be changing or no?
Yeah, everything changes every 2 years, as you recall when you were there. And so we'll see what happens. We've been on the senior committees of the Senate. I'm willing to work with the leader on that because I've served on everything. So to me, it's really what do we need to do for the good of the conference. But I'm open and flexible on that right now because I think we can, based on my knowledge of the Capitol and the process, we can navigate pretty easily and understand where we need to be and what we need to do.
Is there a committee, though, that you're thinking you'd like to be on?
Well, we've served on Finance and Rules Committee, which are senior committees of the Senate, they can be very challenging too. They're good committees and they're senior committees, but they can be very time-consuming committees also. So I'm going to keep an open mind at this point in time, and I'll work with the leadership to see what we need for the best interest of our conference as well as the communities that we serve and represent.
I should know this because I worked for Senator Donovan. He was pretty high up there in seniority, but I can't remember what his license plate was. I should be able to remember that, but I think you're about where he was, yes?
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the leadership plates, like I got down to 5 when I was a deputy leader, you know, but so it just, you know, they depend, those are on seniority basically, so it gives you an idea, but I could get that ranking number where you are.
Yeah. The Senate is really governed to a large degree by seniority. They do things by seniority.
Yeah, a lot of tradition in the Senate, more so than in the Assembly. I mean, we still vote verbally. We don't use the voting technology that you have in the Assembly, for instance. You have to be in your seat. There are different rules and regulations. I think it's more tied to tradition, you know, and so.
And you know those procedures pretty well. You actually enjoyed presiding over the Senate, don't you?
Yeah, when we had the opportunity. I mean, that is the job of the lieutenant governor traditionally, but then when the lieutenant governor's not there, which is most of the time, the majority selects presiding officer. And I tried it a little. They tried me, I think, early on. They must have liked me, and then I got familiar with it and I enjoyed it. It was an opportunity to engage each and every day on the floor, and I think we did a pretty good job because we began to do it a lot, and again, I think we earned respect on both sides of the aisle too, which is important for me because while we're running the chamber, and obviously you're there as a part of your conference, you know, an extension of the conference, but also it's, you know, you treat your members, all the members, with respect, and I think we accomplished that. And we had I actually had a member now on the Democrat conference come up to me and say that he has modeled his approach when he's up at the dais on me. So I said, well, I appreciate that. And he's a younger member from New York City, very talented Democrat, and he said that to me like a couple of times last year. So it's Senator Bailey. He's a good guy. So he. You know, we don't agree on everything, obviously, but I think that's what we need, and that's what's missing, Joe. You know, we can disagree, but you don't have to abandon your core philosophical or political beliefs or your moral beliefs, but you can still try to respect one another and to debate these issues on merit, and then ultimately understand that you have to govern too. You know, the campaigns are for, politics are for campaigns. When you're in office, you govern, and without abandoning. Right, yeah.
A lot of personality. When we come back, I want to talk about the proposed thruway hikes, which are substantial. State Senator Joe Griffo is our guest. Short break, right back. And welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking with us. State Senator Joe Griffo is our guest. We're talking about a variety of state issues. What's going on with the State Thruway Authority? They're proposing a big hike, yes?
They are, and as you know, they're independent. I know a lot of people question and criticize that they're even continuing to put on tolls when it was originally indicated that when the bonds were paid off, they would be free. And I would hope they would have been able to achieve that objective. They're not. They cite operations and maintenance as the reason. So my contention has always been then you should be at the lowest toll possible, not the highest toll. And now with the cashless tolls with the new technology, the new gantries that are all put up. And I think there's been a lot of problems with that. And we warned the authority that they had to be ready and prepared. We know that everything's not perfect, but that they should be able to function. We see a lot of people being charged inappropriately and for things that they shouldn't be charged for. So you're causing consternation for constituents again and users of the thruway. So and now they're proposing a toll that would be significantly higher, particularly trying to force more people to go to Easy Pass. So I just believe they should put it on hold. This is not the right time when you look at all the economic challenges families are facing right now and businesses. You don't want to put an additional burden on them. I think Matt Driscoll's done a good job. He's retiring in a couple weeks. He's the former mayor of Syracuse. But I just believe the authority itself, who are appointees, are making this decision. And I hope they would understand and appreciate that this is not the right time to do something like this, and that they should actually be reversing this and lowering tolls.
I guess many people would say these are gubernatorial appointments, and they're not answerable to the public.
Right. We're seeing more and more of that. We see that with the Climate Control Board. These authorities, we need major authority reform, in my opinion, and we have suggested and put forward legislation to do so, to look at all of these authorities, to eliminate as many as you can. The responsibility should rest on those who people elect, because then there's a consequence if you're not listening to the public that you serve. So I appreciate public service, but in this case, we have too many boards now making decisions, authorities and boards making major policy decisions. I mean, the Climate Control Board is telling people you can't have a gas-powered car in year 2030 or 35. You're not going to be able to put any new construction is not going to have natural gas in it. Former chairman of the Energy Committee, I believe we need a diversified energy portfolio. You should never put all your eggs in one basket. And if you're going to embrace renewables and clean energy, which is fine, I believe we need to do that, but we should do it in a reasonable time period, in a realistic time period. And none of that is happening. It's all being motivated by philosophic or political beliefs. Even with clean energy right now, there's heavy taxpayer subsidies for solar and wind, and yet they refuse to accept nuclear as a clean energy component, which it is. And you see more and more of that in Europe. So there's a lot at stake here, and these decisions are problematic for those reasons.
I'm trying to think, speaking of energy, I'm trying to think, there was some regulation or proposed regulation about the size of solar farms in our area.
Well, that's another thing. They basically took away from the local governments the ability. It was always under Article 10. It was a siting process, and the local governments could weigh in. That's why we were successful in defeating the New York Regional Interconnect many years ago when I was county exec. We led an 8-county coalition to, this was a bad project, and it was going to be bad for the whole upstate New York area. But now, basically, if it's a clean energy project or renewable project, local governments can object. They can be out there publicly, but it doesn't weigh in the final decision that's going to be made as to whether the project goes on or is stopped. And I think that's wrong. I think that local governments need to have a say. And this is not about the old, not in my backyard. You know, I recognize that you have to do things that's in the public interest. But to say now that local governments and these individuals are elected by people and have responsibility for the general welfare of their community too, that their say is meaningless is wrong. Yeah. And I think that's the approach that we're starting to see in Albany, and that's what I disagree with vehemently right now.
Switching gears, the federal judge in our area, David Hurd, was going to retire. Then, and you correct me if I get this scenario wrong, then U.S. Senator Hildebrand proposed a judge to take that seat that wasn't from this area. Judge Hurd then pulled back his retirement because he wanted the judge for this area to live in this area, be from this area. Where do we stand with all this now?
So Judge Hurd is a distinguished jurist, and he's done a great job throughout his career. And they tried to really soil that, unfortunately. Senator Hildebrand chose a candidate from the Capital District, and that would have stole a judgeship that has now been here in the Utica area for the federal courts, and it needs to be here from a logistics standpoint, from a access standpoint. There's 2 judges in Albany, there's a couple judges in Syracuse, federal judges, so this area deserves and needed this. So for her to do that, I think, was showing her indifference to our community and her disengagement here, and it's wrong. And then to try to really belittle the character of Judge Hurd, basically, to have groups come out and say that he was being, because the individual is of a particular ethnic group and that he may be discriminatory in some way, is so unfair to this man who has served so, in an excellent manner through his whole career. So what happened, though, which justified everything, so the judge withdrew his papers so they couldn't appoint a judge, and he was seeking to take senior status, where he wouldn't be completely retired, but they would be able to appoint another judge. It would be of the Democrat persuasion, understand that, because there's a Democrat in the White House right now. But I think there's so many capable, talented candidates in this region that could have been considered to keep the courthouse open here in Utica. Ultimately, it turns out that the nominee that Senator Gillibrand had recommended is now being looked at for sanctions. He works for the Attorney General of the state of New York and is being reviewed for potential sanctions for particular actions that he has taken. So his name will now probably be withdrawn. So I'm hopeful that Senator Gillibrand and maybe Senator Schumer will step in as the senior senator and tell the junior senator, Senator Gillibrand, let's look for somebody in the Mohawk Valley because there's a lot of talented people there, and let's get somebody put on the bench and keep that seat here in Utica.
Well, it's interesting because when you mentioned Judge Hurd, I was honored to be asked to speak at one of his latest naturalization ceremonies. He is so good with new citizens, swearing them in, and he really...
You got the runner connection, that's why, right?
Well,
So,
that's true. That's true. Anyway, that's a little side note on my part. State Senator Joe Griffo is our guest. We're talking about New York state issues. We'll be talking about some other things right after this short break. And welcome back, everybody. State Senator Joe Griffo is our guest. We're talking about a variety of state issues. The senator started out, let me see if I get this correct now, started out as an aide to the mayor of Rome, a Oneida County legislator, mayor of Rome, Oneida County executive, and now state senator. Did I get it right?
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
Who was the mayor? I forgot who the mayor was.
Carl Eilenberg.
Carl Eilenberg.
The voice of the Orange.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Oh, I missed that voice up at the Orange games. Controller DiNapoli, who I've interviewed. He's a very articulate guy, very hardworking guy, did an audit on the state unemployment. And it was not a very favorable audit, was it?
No, there's $11 billion missing.
Yeah.
And I'm glad the comptroller did the audit. And I recognize that the pandemic caused some different challenges throughout the system. However, this is unacceptable that we dispersed over $11 billion.
You're saying B as in
$11 billion.
Yeah.
And now it appears that the Department of Labor is just saying, well, there were mistakes made, it was pandemic, it was tough, unacceptable. Mm-hmm. And you will not be able to, in my opinion, just say we're going to write this off. Mm-hmm. It's unacceptable. So what we've said is I think there should be legislative hearings to determine how and why this happened. Secondly, we need to go after the money, recoup as much as possible because this is taxpayers' dollars. And third, anybody who swindled the system, because there were people who tried to purposely, do what they shouldn't be doing by trying illegally to get money, using other people's identities, things of that nature. We need to find them and hold them accountable. That's what we should be doing. And that's what we're urging the governor and her administration to do, and urging the legislature to hold and conduct hearings to get into this, to use the comptroller's audit to find out why and how this happened and what we're going to do to recoup the money and hold people accountable.
Do you have any relationship with the new governor?
Yeah, I mean, we know each other, and I'll work with her where and when I can for the best interest of the people of my district as well as the state of New York. But where we disagree, I will talk about those disagreements, and I will continue to advocate and fight for our region.
I was thinking, her being from the Buffalo area, that she might be more sensitive to upstate New York.
That remains to be seen at this point in time.
Yeah. The Comptroller DiNapoli, you've got a good working relationship with him, don't you?
We do have a very good working relationship, and yeah, we facilitated a couple of the interviews that you're talking about with you.
Yeah. Also, talking about facilitating things, you had a conference the other day, I saw a picture of it somewhere, a conference table around which was Utica Police Chief Mark Williams, the acting superintendent of the state police, and Oneida County Sheriff Rob Mashel and others. What was that all about?
So I convened a meeting based on some of the gun violence and things that we're seeing in our community. I thought it was important that we bring all the elected officials. The county executive was there, the two mayors, Rome and Utica, were there, the police chiefs from Rome and Utica, acting superintendent Negrelli. We had the Division of Criminal Justice Services there, as well as the Division of Homeland Security, Department of Homeland Security. So we had a great group discussion about what the problems that they are experiencing are and what we can do to address and fight these challenges head on by identifying additional resources that we may have available. And what we determined as a result of the meeting was, and I heard them loud and clear, and I agree with them, but we've got to get the majorities in the legislature to do so. They want to see changes in some of the criminal justice policies. So we're going to continue to advocate, like bail. Bail still has not been addressed properly. So it's still a problem based on the changes that the majority's made and the governor before. Secondly, can we do anything that makes it easier to recruit and retain law enforcement officers? Because we know they're facing some significant challenges, and they have not had a lot of the support that they should have and deserved to have had in the past from government officials, not the public. And then finally, what else can we do collectively, when we identify resources that may be there that can be put into play that can make a difference, hopefully, in our community. So those are what we're going to work on now. Policy changes, which are going to be very difficult, continued communication and collaboration, what resources are available, and what structural changes can we make in law that might make it easier to recruit and retain law enforcement officials.
I see where Sheriff Mashel...
the sheriff was there too, yes.
Yeah, I see where Sheriff Mashel is making some changes in the procedures for corrections officers.
That's exactly what we talked about, applying some of those type of standards to law enforcement too.
Yeah. And the bail reform problem is just terrible.
Well, I won't call it bail reform, I call it bail changes, and you're right, it needs real reform, and it needs the people on the ground in the criminal justice system involved, law enforcement, prosecutors, and criminal defense attorneys. They all should have input in that.
Yeah, and the shoplifting, we were talking about shoplifting during the commercial break. I mean, it has gotten just crazy.
It's outrageous, and we brought a group together of retailers and businesses and law enforcement and some elected officials at the end of last year. We haven't had the success that I envisioned and hoped in trying to develop new policies that can be helpful to these retail establishments, because it is outrageous that you're starting to see so much of this activity, and there's no consequence, obviously, when people are taken. And in some cases, in big box stores, the policy is not to engage. And I think they're having a change of heart now, because it's starting to have an impact economically, and that's passed along to all the consumers. Look, these are challenging times, but this is an unacceptable crime, and there's got to be a consequence for this. So we're going to work on that. Joe, I don't know what happened. We talked about this too. We had a pandemic, and it just seems like the world has been upended. and society is so different. We see supply shortages. We see people not able to get medicine when they need it. We don't know how and why there's no people to fill the jobs that exist. And there's so many staff shortages in so many different areas of employment in all sectors of the economy. I just don't understand what happened and how it happened, because it doesn't make sense. And I think that should be a priority from a federal perspective, that we need to figure out not only what went wrong, but how we're going to fix this now and how we're going to get everything functioning again. That comes with reinvesting and reestablishing industry and businesses in the United States, so we're never relying or dependent upon product abroad. And there's so many things that we can and should do, but right now is, why is this happening the way it is? And I think this contributes to some of the things that you talked about, like the shoplifting and everything. And even people who are in need can't find I was seeing a story just recently that the pantries are not full anymore, and people aren't giving because they can't afford to give right now, because you look at the cost of inflation and such. So we really got to fix this. We've got to get this right.
Always good talking to you.
Take care, Joe.
Thanks for coming in. That's going to do it for this week. We'll be back next week. We'll do it all again. Don't forget cnyhomepage.com. There's a lot of good stuff there. Till next time, take care of yourself, everybody.